Hello and welcome everyone to episode 72 of DoubleDM. This week we discuss campaign length, why it actually matters, and why we think having a defined campaign length is actually better for your campaigns. Now that might raise a few eyebrows, I know, but just you wait for this episode to see what we are talking about. And hey, even if you disagree, we cannot rule over your table, but I urge you to listen to this to understand what we actually mean when we say limit your campaigns. Anyway, I have another announcement for you guys, and this one's a big one. Next week's episode will feature something special in our mid-roll. That something special will also air on our social media channels 2 days later on Wednesday, the 29th of June. So if you're listening to episode 73 on Monday or Tuesday, you actually get early access to the special thing. And you do not want to miss this. Trust me. Again, a special thing will premiere in the next week's episode's mid-roll and then on the following Wednesday on all other social media platforms and also as a standalone on this podcasting feed. Be ready, be warned. Anyway, now let's move on over to the actual episode of DoubleDM and let's chat about why campaign length matters and how it can make your TTRPGs better.
Hello and welcome to DoubleDM episode 72. With me, as usual, is my lovely co-host Emil. How are you today?
I am doing fine. I have everything done on my to-do list today. It's just this recording, and after that I am free to do whatever I want, probably go to bed because it's already quite late in the day. Fuck that. I also have beer with me because this is gonna be the first episode I'm gonna record not completely sober of DoubleDM. So if I talk bullshit, people, you know why. Even though it's just one beer, so I probably won't be talking bullshit at all. But, well, we will see, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a little bullshit, right? It is just the classic banter. It's just part of it, especially in the recap stage.
Yeah, probably, because you're here, there's always...
Exactly. There we go.
Oh, God, no. No, obviously not. You're a very valuable asset to this team.
Why does it sound sarcastic? Answer me.
Because I made it sound like that. No, okay, please. Obviously, I want to hear from you. How has your week been?
It has been fairly good, actually.
Oh.
I had some struggles with my math homework, but that shit is done now, and I'm glad. And
I thought you were going to say I had some struggle with my mom.
No.
And I was like, oh, what's happening now?
No. There's, on the family front, there's nothing to worry about, so that's a plus. But yeah, only 2 weeks of math homework left, and then I'm done forever. That's a good thing that I'm really excited about. And yeah, then I had an amazing session yesterday, actually, where we revived one of the campaigns that I was talking about when we first started this podcast.
Once again, I thought you were going to say revive the PC, but no, a campaign. Okay, tell me about that campaign. Why did it die?
Because of scheduling issues.
The usual.
The classic, but it is the big campaign I was talking about with 8 players plus a DM. And finding time for 9 people with busy schedules can be quite tough. And we didn't manage to find a new date for over half a year now, or even longer before that. And then just, I think 2 or 3 months ago, we talked about, hey, we just want to play sometime again. When are you all free? Somewhere around there. Okay. Whoever has time can show up, and then we just play. So we weren't, not everybody was there, but we discussed that beforehand, that everyone is cool with that we just pick a date and whoever has time and wants to play just arrives and plays the game with us. But we had an amazing session with a huge recap for our personal lives, because we haven't seen each other for nearly 3/4 of a year now. And then obviously to recap what all has happened before the campaign more or less died. One sad thing about that session was that one of the PCs tragically died. But it still was a awesome story moment nonetheless, because it motivated the other 2 or the other 3 player characters that were there when it happened to to kick the story along further and get stronger to honor his personal quest that he couldn't fulfill. So yeah, it was a bittersweet thing.
Have you ever thought about making this game a West Marches style game for this group?
Exactly, that's what we were doing.
So that's what you're gonna do now.
Exactly.
Everyone who can show shows, and those that don't show just aren't there for the quest, and then all those that show end that quest, and then in the town they can go on the next quest together, whoever is available.
Exactly. Because that's way easier to schedule with.
Yeah, obviously, because you as a GM just say as soon as you're ready, and then you say, okay, it needs at least, and you say, I need at least 4 of you to go on this quest. 4 people say, I'm free that day, you go that day. Easy peasy, right?
Exactly.
It's if you want to know more about West March's style of game, because I have been toying with the idea myself because it would be the easiest way to get an extra campaign I have in mind going that could potentially not work with scheduling issues right now. And if you want to know more, you can go back to episode 13 of DoubleDM, which is with FG from D&D World, one of the biggest, if not the biggest even, Dungeons & Dragons West Marches Discord servers. She talks about a lot about how that works and how West Marches works, so if you want to check that out, It's a very old episode of the show, so the audio quality isn't all that great, but it's way worth it, because it was an interesting and amazing talk with her.
Hell yeah.
So that was your week, or
Exactly.
was there anything else?
No. Nothing spectacular, just the usual work stuff, but that's about it. How was yours?
I had 2 sessions, one on Sunday, which was my Fandoms of Chaos group. My players finished more or less their quest in the mountains and went back to the capital city, where on the way there, one of the characters said goodbyes and went on their own ways. One of the players decided to leave. Not the player, but he wanted to let the character leave because he as a player felt that his character kind of wasn't a good character. That's something to talk about entirely in an episode even, I think, but generally he felt that his character was more written as a character for a book than for a TTRPG story, which made it hard to play a character where you already know all the decisions they're gonna make in the future, because you have an idea of what you want them to end up like.
Yeah.
And that was a problem for them. And so they decided to say, okay, let's leave it at that. This character goes. I'm gonna bring in a new character, which is this. And I have to say, this is a bold character. This is an incredible character, in my opinion. It's a half orc, half elf, and he's an eldritch knight that distinctly keeps the fighting part and the magic part different. No combat spells whatsoever.
Okay.
And the idea behind that character is that his parents were very strict. One of them being a magician or a wizard, saying you have to study magic. And the other parent being you have to study fighting. You have to be ready. You have to be trained. But because there was a disparity between those parents in that way of how they bring up their kid, there's not this disparity in the character between the 2 skill sets. He has magic. He has ability. He has fighting, but he cannot connect the 2. At least right now. He's been kind of, that's one of the very fun things. His parents seem to have put him out of danger in every possible way. So he has combat experience, but only from training. He has magic experience only from training, but nothing in the field. It's all more or less theoretical. And this is the first time, and then he went on the quest with the players, with the other characters, and this was the first time he was actually outside the city for real this time, which is very fun to see, because this journey was into the ice tundra of the north of the continent, a desolate wasteland of ice and snow, where survival is so hard that most people just don't. Not even most animals or monsters survive there.
Yeah, that sounds like a jump into cold water, but make it 100. It's just, oh, you've never been outside the city? Well, do this. And you'll never need any more field experience because you nearly have seen it all, kind of deal. Awesome. Okay, yeah. But that sounds like an interesting story branch to follow.
Yeah, right. That's why I'm saying this. This is such an interesting character, because there's a lot of extra backstory that I don't want to spoiler right now, because some of the players might be listening and this was already something that they don't know necessarily. So yeah, there's a lot of plot about this character, but it's all about this duality of the two.
Yeah.
That's kind of the feeling he's going for.
Yeah.
Yeah. But generally, yeah, we have a new character in the group now. The dynamic has been changed drastically, and my players are now in the Ice Wasteland, have fought a few Yetis, which is interesting because someone from the village where they wanted to arrive to before they have to head out into the wasteland told them that this isn't a natural occurrence, that these Yetis are so close to the village they were hoping to fight. That only means one thing: there's a stronger, bigger, badder monster out that has driven these Yetis away and out of their caves and into the arms of civilization. And now they're going on a monster hunt.
Oh yeah.
Because if that monster is that monster is near, they need to find it. It needs to be killed. It needs to be driven away at least.
Yeah.
And so that's gonna be fun. I'm gonna run a monster hunt next week, and probably also some part of a dungeon crawl, because the players are there to find a dungeon, a snake temple or snake palace or whatever, and hopefully stop an evil snake matriarch absorb her third and final sister, because there are these 4 snake matriarchs and she has already absorbed 2 others and is herself the 4th, so there's already 3 powers combined in her, and she wants this 4th power, and players need to stop that, and they don't know how yet, and they hopefully stop her. And so that's gonna be what happens next session: finding this monster and eradicating it, and working with the snake matriarch and the snake UNT people and all of that stuff.
Hell yeah, can't wait to hear more about it.
And I had a second session yesterday on Tuesday, which was another fun 4-hour session of Tyranny of Dragons, and this was also a campaign where we, due to issues, decided to stop the campaign for a long time and then took it up again, and now have been playing for a few weeks. And yeah, my players have been weirdly we have this introduction adventure again, so they find their way back into the story and into the characters and all of that stuff without much error that they might mess up something about the storyline, and that could potentially derail everything for them, which is fun because they were searching in a noble's house, noble's villa, and didn't find any clues to what they were looking for. So they were kind of panicking. Oh shit, we need to find something. So now they have broken into his ship as well. They are constantly breaking in everywhere to find clues as to, now get this, they're breaking in to find clues about a noble they know is a cultist, who they want to frame for a murder that is potentially leading to a worldwide war between the Lord's Alliance and a different part of the continent. They want to hope that this war doesn't break out, because that would mean that the armies that are needed to defeat the cult of the Dragon Queen, once their operations have been set into motion, we stopped, right? You need these armies. So they need to stop these armies from going to war. They also can easily use this noble for information gathering, and they're gonna have a big up on the cult if they destroy one of their shipping routes, of their smuggling routes with this noble, because this noble owns these ships that are used to smuggle cold wares. So this is a 3-way strike for my players if it works well. They're panicking a lot because they don't have enough, and they are under a strict time constraint because this noble is going on the next venture on their ship in 2 days. And if they are on high seas, no fucking way you can stop this war anymore. Or then the opportunity is lost, and they need to see what's happening next.
Okay, so a lot of fucking action to come in these 2 days.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That sounds like something difficult to prep for sometimes, because this shit can go sideways real quick. Especially if you have back-to-back break-ins on the same person's property, shit can go sideways real quick.
Yeah.
And yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, actually. Hell yeah.
Right? It's a lot of fun because it's so much that can have that, so much lying on the fact that they do this right.
It's a high risk, high reward kind of situation.
Yeah. And after that, they're going to learn a lot of more stuff that is going to be like, oh shit, we have to do this. So there's a lot of stuff. And I like it.
Hell yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear more about this as well. I need to hear more about this.
You're going to have to wait a bit for that, though. So, with that, I think we have covered everything in this recap. So, let's go ahead and move over to our main part of this episode, where we're going to talk about campaign length and what you should pay attention to when deciding the campaign length, and also why you should at least have some guideline on how long your campaigns are going to be. Hey everyone, welcome to your scheduled mid-roll. If you have been enjoying DoubleDM either as a first-time listener or month-long fan, thank you for listening. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, sitting back and philosophizing about tabletop role-playing and game mastering and all other nonsense we throw in there. If you want to help us out though, there are a few easy ways you can help out the show. Leave a review or rating on the platform you are listening on right now. It's often just a few clicks and types away, or even better, tell a friend about us. Spread the word about our show and how it has helped you or might help someone running their games. If you've listened to our episode on character creation or our episode on villains and think, hey, this would be a good fit for my friend that has some questions on that, send them our episode. Maybe they like it. Maybe they will love it and become our new fan and you have someone to discuss the show with. Trust me, creative dialogue is one of the best things you can do. It's why we do this. Okay, anyway, enough of me. If you are another TTRPG creator and want your product, show or project featured on the DoubleDM podcast right here at this point in time in the episodes, contact us on Twitter. We have paid advertisement slots as well as promo swap spots open for creators. Okay, that was the mid-roll, everyone. Thanks. Let's jump right back into the show.
And with that, welcome back to the episode where we talk about how to find the campaign length to suit your game and what it might mean for your play. So, first of all, what, as per usual, our definition time, a bit at least. Emil, please tell me, what do we mean when we say short or long campaigns?
I think that everyone has a different definition for these sort of things, right? Everyone, when you ask someone, what is a long campaign for you, they're going to have a different answer than a lot of other people. For example, me. For me, a long campaign constitutes a campaign that spans at least 2 years. It's worth of sessions. Otherwise, I'm not going to call it a long campaign. Because, well, first of all, the longest campaign I've run was 9 years. The second longest campaign I've run was 6 years. The third longest campaign I've run from start to finish was 10 sessions. And that was a short campaign in my opinion. Because I told my players as such, this is a short campaign. Be prepared that this is over in a few months again. I didn't want this to be a full year or a year's worth of investment, because that's going to be the first thing you're going to have to think about when it's about length. Length is about invest. How much time do people want to invest in this campaign? And when you say I have a long campaign prepared, I'm going to think this is a year-long obligation for me. That is just because of how my groups and my friends usually play their games and how we take a lot of time to do different things that could probably be handled way quicker by people if they just don't care about all the side and fun little stuff that isn't that important.
Yeah, but funny that you mentioned 2 years, because I wrote down 2 years as a breaking point between long and short campaigns as well for me. But depending on how much you play, something around, I would say a short campaign might be something around 8 to 30 sessions-ish, something along those lines. And a long campaign, I would say, is anything beyond that, at least for me.
I will say, currently talking about years, right? This is outgame time, obviously. Obviously, that also depends on a lot of factors. One of them, how your other campaigns have went so far, for years, for days, for whatever. But obviously, other people play the game at different intervals. Some play every week. Some play once a month. Some play just when they can. Some play not at all. There's a lot of difference between those things. And I think when we're talking about years, we're dismissing the fact that for some people, a year worth of sessions means 12 sessions. For others, a year worth of session means 52 for every week one. So there's, I think while it's okay to talk about years, then you need to define how long and what intervals you play, because that's important. So when you're talking about campaign length, you should actually more be talking about how many sessions you're going to play. But there's also sessioning. How long are these sessions going to be? And this is a lot of stuff to accumulate how long your campaign's going to be. These are things we have to mention. It's not about years, right? Because someone just plays 12 sessions a year and that's it for them. Others played 52 for one campaign a year. That's going to be a lot of different expectations of what is a long and short campaign, because our last short campaign took 10 sessions. That's nearly a full year for someone that only plays once a month.
Yeah, but usually for me, I play with different groups once a month each. So sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, but roughly once a month. So a full year worth of sessions would be 12.
Yeah.
Something around those lines.
Okay.
And then I would say for me, short campaigns would be 1 to 1.5 years. So around 20-ish sessions.
Under 20 sessions or something, right?
Yeah. And everything above that, I would define for myself as a long campaign because of the out of game time that I have to invest into it with planning, scheduling, and preparing all of the campaign ideas and notes and everything else.
Yeah, right. We're just talking about sessions. I can't count the number of sessions I had in my longest campaign for 9 years because we changed. We played once a month. We sometimes played bi-weekly, sometimes played weekly. There's a lot of different things about this. So we never know. We don't know the exact count of our session length, but it's going to be longer than most people. I'm for sure going to say that it's longer than Critical Role's campaign 2 number of sessions. 100%. So for people that know that there's roughly 150 episodes, if that's a long campaign for you, yeah, I play longer than that. But right, there's only one. It's either a long campaign or a short campaign. Obviously, that's a very easy distinction. There's obviously, you could also say that there's middle campaigns, there's extra long campaigns, there's extra short campaigns, there's one-offs and whatever, right? You can call a lot of different things. But generally, when you're talking about campaign length, talk about sessions, in my opinion. It's the best way to define this because everyone has an idea for this. Obviously, you should also talk about how long these sessions are going to be. If it's just once a month, you might be able to make the decision that you play 6 to 8 hours instead of 4 because it's just once a month and everyone wants to play longer than that because they have more time. Doesn't work for all, right? I know 8-hour sessions are long. It's a full day. It's a full day's worth of game time. I know that not many people can do that, especially if it's not on the weekends. But I think there's a lot of different other ways you can define campaign length, in my opinion, which you have to define. You find the one that works best for your game. That's the first advice for campaign length.
Yeah.
Find the best way to define campaign length for your table, for the specific campaign. You might say, we don't have campaign length. Our campaign goes until we all say we're finished or until the story is finished, until my players do whatever. That's still a campaign length defined because you still give something that everyone knows this is when the campaign ends. Sometimes you limit this by saying we only play 12 sessions. After that the campaign is done. Everyone knows the 12th session is going to be the last. If the campaign ends when you kill the BBEG and you introduce the BBEG, everyone knows as soon as we battle this BBEG, this could be it. This could be the end. This is also the definition of campaign length. But obviously, if you give such an ambiguous goal, you don't know the exact session length. And it could be that you're either playing a short campaign because it only takes you 5 sessions to do that, or a long because it takes 100 sessions to do that.
Yeah. So something like soft and hard definition of campaign length, basically.
Yeah. Find the one that's right for you. Find what works best for you to limit this. But I will advise you, limit your campaigns. It's not that I want you to limit your fun and that you are not allowed to play forever. I know people that play forever, that do not have any intentions of changing their characters or the game world they're in or whatever. And that's fine. But I advise limiting your campaigns. In my opinion, limiting your campaigns can do a lot of good things for you.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
One of all is what we talked about in our rewards episode, closure. It gives that finishing touch to a story. You need closure to finish a story. And it's satisfactory to see closure. So limiting a campaign will guarantee closure. If you finish a campaign, there's guaranteed closure to that campaign. Yeah. That's going to be one big point. Second of all, it's respecting your player's time. Remember that, for example, my first campaign, the 9-year campaign, started when I was in 9th grade. I think 8th grade or 9th grade. I am now, I am 1 semester away from my bachelor thesis. And we just finished that campaign.
Yeah.
I had my school graduation. I had to find jobs. I had to apply for college. I have to work through college for several years. So there's going to be a lot of changes to my schedule. There's going to be a lot of changes to my lifestyle. There's going to be a lot of changes to me as a person. Telling me how long a campaign is going to be the best thing that ensures that I know what I'm getting into for the campaign, right? I don't want you to always give me a hard definition. My GM didn't do that for our 9-year campaign, but he told us that we're going to play a module, a five book module. That module has an ending. And I knew when that module is ended, that campaign is over. Yeah. Right? So that is still an endpoint. That is still a length defined. The length of these books is the length of this campaign. When you finish the last chapter of the last book, this campaign is over. That was the definition. That was what we agreed to. And that was something I could have worked right at the time. I was like 14 years old, so I didn't really work with it because I didn't expect that to go this long at all. But that's not a problem. But nowadays, I would like to at least have a general idea of when a campaign is over.
Yeah, I think to have a rough out of game scheduled to know when it is ending campaign can be quite good, or it should be a thing for your session 0 to talk about.
Yeah.
Because then you can decide if you want to invest in that campaign length or not.
Yeah, it's just courtesy to your players and to everyone at the table, even if you're just the GM and you ask the players, how long is this campaign gonna be? If your players give you answers, you can work with that as well, right? You know how to limit your story. That's something we're gonna get into soon as well. But I wanted to go back to a few other ways on how limiting the story or how limiting the campaign can work, or defining length of a campaign can work. Because D&D has another mechanic that allows you to define how long a campaign is gonna be. It has levels. You can tell your players this campaign is going to be from 3rd to 12th level. So as soon as your players reach 12th level, they know they're not going to level up anymore, and know that when they are 12th level, that's going to be the ending point of the campaign, or when they do something at that level, it's over. But that's the definition. When you say it's going to be 3rd to 12th level. That's another way. And other games give you other options, right? Some games, a lot of more ways that characters are not supposed to sustain years of play. Characters lose insanity in Call of Cthulhu. You could say as soon as all the original characters you all created, the original 4 characters my group created, as soon as those all have gone insane and disappeared from the campaign is over. If one of them loses too much sanity and has to change character, that's okay. But as soon as all 4 had to at least do once, it's over. That's also a limitation. That's also a limitation on length. And your players, if they've played the system for a few times, they can somewhat guesstimate how long that is, right? You can somewhat guesstimate how long a campaign from 3rd to 12th level is in D&D, right? There's going to be differences between everyone, but you can guesstimate the session length or the campaign length.
And I think coming back to that, because talking about 3rd to 12th level, for example, when you talking about the campaign being from 3rd to 12th level, that might not be as hard of a definition as sessions or session numbers might be, but I think especially when we talk about session numbers, especially for longer campaigns, you have to add or subtract something from the average session number. If you say, this campaign will be something along the lines of 100 sessions, more or less, plus or minus, whatever fits the story best.
Yeah.
But for shorter campaigns, you can say, okay, we can finish this in 12 sessions and we will, and that's the ending point.
Yeah.
But the longer you go, the more room you have to play with when this on the session numbers itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things, right? No one's asking you to give a perfect definition of how long this campaign is going to be, because you never know.
Yeah.
We all know TTRPGs are a lot about improv and a lot about changing things as you go and working with the punches. Obviously, everyone knows if you say this campaign is going to be 12 sessions long and it's going to be 13 sessions long, no one's going to bat an eye. Except if you're paying people. If you're paying people for 12 sessions for an actual play and you make it 13 sessions, you better be fucking paying them that 13th session. And probably even extra, because this is overtime.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be in the contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Please fucking pay your people if you promise them pay. And even if you don't promise them, pay them. Even if it's not even that much of money, but pay people, compensate them for their work. And no exposure isn't compensation for work. Just want to throw that out there because it's important.
Yeah.
So, for example, for Titan's Call, I wanted to throw Titan's Call as an example into this. Not because I'm gonna go through with paying my cast, but also with session length. Because a lot of actual players say, we're gonna play a campaign, look and see how it whatever, and that's okay. But I think that for me, as a listener or a viewer or a consumer of your product, if I know that this campaign is gonna be on the shorter end or has a defined ending already, I have a lot more easy ways to find out if I'm gonna listen to the story in the first place. If I know this campaign has 100 hours of backlog, like Critical Role does, the decision of getting into it might seem a little harder for people because they were going to be like, that many episodes? Oh, that's too much for me. I don't want to do that. But if you say, hey, my podcast is 1 hour long per episode and it has only 24 episodes and that's it, that's going to be a lot easier for people to get into if they want to.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I think for actual plays, having a defined campaign length is also a big benefit. It works for your cast if you pay them, which you should. It also works for your viewer or listener or consumer to know how long a campaign is going to be. But again, it's also okay to say we're going to have a long campaign. This campaign is going to go from level 1 to 20 in D&D. That's going to take a long time for some people. That means that people are ready. Even if your podcast is just starting out with 5 episodes, they know that there's probably a lot more episodes to come. They know that there's going to be an investment to keep up with their story because you told them that it's going to be a long campaign. That has its benefits. I just don't see a negative to really telling giving people a rough estimation of how long your campaign is gonna be.
Yeah, I can't think of one either. Especially if it's just a rough estimate, then there's no harm done, because no one can say, but you said it were 8 sessions. I said it was about 8 sessions, so fuck off. If it's 9 or 7, go to hell. I said about 8 sessions. You can't pin that on me.
100% true, right? Again, pay your cast. If it's for an actual play that's paid, remember that that's a different situation. We're not covering that here, because that should be easy, clear, shut and done. If you say 8 sessions and you pay for 8 sessions, your players are going to show up for 8 sessions. They don't have to show up for the 9th, and they can expect an 8th session after the 7th, or the payment at least, because they probably have signed the contract or whatever. Anyway, going on from that, Niels, do you have any idea of what other benefits it really gives you and why you should limit or at least think about a campaign length before you play a campaign?
I think it helps you, especially if you're a DM or GM, it helps you plan the storyline a bit better. Because if you know how long your session is going to be, you know how intricate you can make it and how many different story paths you can explore, or how deeply you can weave the character's backstory into the story itself. It just gives you a hint on, for example, on a long campaign, you have all the time you need to weave in as many character backstories as you want with the main plot, or even just create subplots for that. On a shorter campaign, for a rough estimate of 8 to 10 sessions, this time might not be there, because still you want to finish the main story, because that's the thing you want to close on. You want you and your players to have closure on, is the main story. So you might not have the time to make it an intricate political intrigue kind of campaign that might stretch over 20 sessions, because you only have 10.
For sure, right? It's also about, as you said, the planning part. It's so important, in my opinion, to know how long you have time to play something out. If you have the slow burning betrayal, for example, for something, if your players are supposed to be betrayed by an NPC, and we talked about this in the plot twist episode, this is not something you can just pull out of your head, because that's gonna be an asshole move. If you tell your players, this NPC betrayed you, they're gonna be like, oh wow, that's shitty, we trusted that NPC, why did they betray us? There's gonna be a frustration, and you can mitigate that frustration by seeding in hints, right? But those hints need time. That's why I said seeding, because they need time to grow, right? This NPC slowly changing their way of approaching a problem, right? If it's an advisor, for example, your players are all advisors or part of the court of a queen, and this one advisor becomes more violent, more aggressive. He wants to put more people on the front lines. He wants to push forward. He wants to win this war. But normally he isn't. He's everything against war, because it's completely bad for the country. Why did his demeanor change? That's a question your players are going to ask themselves. Maybe they don't know the answer until they have been betrayed. But that betrayal then makes sense, because there was a hint to it. But you don't have the time to seed in that hint if your campaign is only going to be 4 sessions, because you have to drop it in the first session and then have it pay off in the last. Probably. Yeah,
and that just, I think, especially in short campaigns, isn't worth the time you put into it, because then you can make your main story more interesting and scrap all that betraying thing, because having a faster paced, more action focused kind of campaign for shorter ones might benefit your fun at the table more than having a slow burn intrigue game but packed into 4 sessions, because that just gets, or could get, too convoluted or just too plump at points.
Now, going to one other point is people are gonna say, so by limiting my campaign length, I limit myself in the options of campaign I can play. Yeah, you do. Exactly that. But you also want that. Remember that we talked about this in expectation management, that you should ask your players what game you want to play. You should tell your players what game you want to play. So you all have the same expectations. And that expectation management also includes an expected session, an amount of session or campaign length, in my opinion. You can say, okay, my players want a long-running intrigue game. I have to tell them, this is going to take a lot of sessions. Do you really want that? Or are you cool with that it's going to take a lot of sessions? And then that works together. So you're not limiting yourself in the story. You're just making sure that the story you tell has the time it needs to unfold, but also doesn't have any filler time you don't need, right? If you have a very quick campaign that is about, let's say, a monster hunt, like we talked about in this recap in my campaign, right? If I make that a 4-part mini campaign of 4 sessions, I could do that. I could do a long monster hunt with my players that takes them through woods, battles, through icy regions, through fighting this monster several times and whatever. And I could do that in 4 sessions, right? But then I could also say I don't limit it. And now it's my players doing this monster hunt, but also they're somehow in a village and now have to solve a murder mystery. Then they're at the ritual site and some weird druid talks to them about the nature being out of sync, and they have to find some kind of nature goddess that has nothing to do with the monster and kill her, and then find the monster. And there are 2 things in this game that I don't need. I mean, the murder mystery is cool. The nature goddess probably is a very good fight, but I could also see those into a game where the game runs longer, where it would make more sense to have a lot more stuff to explore.
Yeah, I have actually something as an example for this in one of my campaigns.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because in one of the campaigns the group is called Draco Somnium. We all sat down in session 0 and said, okay, this is going to be a long campaign, something around from level 3 to level 17, 18-ish, something along those lines. And they got rewarded with a house in a city. So they have now the time, because we are playing a longer running campaign, to explore the city more freely without being pressed with the main story too much. At least not yet, because there wasn't that much time to for the main story plot to unfold yet. So they have some free time, can enjoy themselves, can customize their home base like we talked about already in rewards and home bases, and explore the woods around the area more, get to know the island they're on, and all of those things.
Yeah.
This is something a long campaign can do very, very well. Give some freedom and downtime opportunities for your players.
Yeah, I think a freedom and downtime only works in a campaign where it's supposed to have this filler time, right? Where it's natural that the story has ups and downs, right? Every story has ups and downs, obviously. But there's a difference in having a 4-part campaign where the ups and downs is the players are in a tavern for the night and rest before they have to head out again and kill another batch of enemies attacking, than to the players have nothing to do and have a month of downtime where they can do whatever they want, and one of them picks up dancing and becomes the famous dancer in the city.
Yeah.
One of the 2 both works for different people, but also for different campaigns.
Exactly.
In one campaign, it wouldn't make sense because the story is about defending a certain outpost from an from an invading army. It wouldn't make sense for the players to have 1 month of downtime. Obviously not. But also, it kind of gets repetitive if your adventure hook or your campaign hook isn't all that interesting for a long campaign, right? I had one very fun post by Mr. Lich, who's an incredible artist on Twitter, was about he had a lot of problems defining campaign length from a campaign pitch. And I was like, it doesn't even really matter about the campaign pitch length. It matters about the ambiguity of your campaign pitch in general. If your campaign pitch is players need to defend themselves against an invading army in an outpost. First of all, yes, that could either take a very short campaign of a few sessions or a very long campaign of a lot of sessions, depending on how you want to play this. But generally, that story is straightforward. But if the ambiguity is gods are missing, that's going to open you up for a lot of longer campaigns, in my opinion, because you have the ability to put in a lot of more different things into that pitch, so it still works. Into that first pitch of players need to defend against an invading army, you cannot put in a lot of different things that still work with that pitch. Your players cannot leave their outpost. They cannot have downtime, really. That's important to note. Not just the downtime, but general.
Yeah, and one thing that downtime can do really well in especially longer campaigns is create opportunities for slowly developing character development that might be difficult in shorter campaigns.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that much time to make it feel organic or without making it without making it felt forced that the character develops in quotation marks.
Yeah, I'm gonna say there's one thing about it that why limiting your campaign, you brought it up, and that is that investment from your players. And that is not just for campaigns, right? It's investment from the players into their character as well. If your campaign is a long campaign, your players are gonna put more care into their characters, a lot more thought into their characters, at least as a general rule of thumb, right? Some people will put in the same length, some people will put in way too much thought into a 4-part character than other people, but that's not the point. Generally, I feel the longer the campaign, the more thought is going into that character, just by definition, because the players now have the thinking of, this campaign is going to be long. I want to have a character that I can sustain for that long. So they're going to have probably more intricate backstories than for a 4-parter. Their character is going to be more intricate themselves. They probably read up a lot more on characters and your world, maybe even you have. They're going to have a lot more questions. They're going to have a lot more investment. And that's something you need to manage.
Yeah.
You need, that's why you need to limit your campaign, or why you should have a length of campaign, at least somewhat in mind. So the investment of your players is not wasted, because if you tell your players, this is going to be a campaign and we're going to kill an archlich, and they're going to go, cool, that's going to be a long campaign. I'm going to have this very cool character. And then it's done after 6 sessions because you give them all the powerful items and they can kill them in session 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that player's going to feel a little bit cheated because they put in so much thought into this character, and now they don't get the value out of it, in their opinion. Maybe they got the value out of it, right? But this is a general rule of thumb that I see is campaign length equates to player investment in everything.
Yeah, again, it comes back to respecting the time your players and you yourself put into the campaign.
Yeah.
And back to expectation management, because that all ties together, especially in this episode now, because we talk about different things that lead to campaign lengths, or campaign lengths lead to different things.
One other thing I wanted to discuss with you was the general game you're playing, right? The decision of what game are we playing. It's going to also have an influence on your campaign length. Or your campaign length is going to have an influence on what game you're actually playing, right? I don't know about you, but I am generally the person that likes D&D campaigns to go to from low level to high level. I'm not going to say 1 to 20, but because we started my campaign at level 2, and I'm probably going to go to level 19 or 20. Another campaign in D&D I started was at level 1, and that's going to go to level 17, something along those lines, right? But I like low to high level because that shows me the whole range of the game. My players are going to be very vulnerable at the beginning and going to be very powerful at the end. I like that. A different game, the Witcher game we played, was 10 sessions because that game, in my opinion, is better for shorter campaigns. It has a brutal combat system. Combat is dangerous. It's easy to sustain permanent injury, which might limit your ways of doing in the campaign, which might hinder your character, and that's okay if you agree to that, obviously. But death is also, in my opinion, way more prevalent than in D&D, as long as you go above the 7th or 8th level mark in D&D.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Witcher game, there isn't any levels. There's just a little bit of progression.
Yeah, and I think there are several other game systems that lend themselves way more towards shorter campaigns or longer campaigns, depending on which system you're playing. Yeah. For example, I think the Mask system that we played with Klaus.
Go listen to that.
Exactly.
There's a lot of different references to other videos and things on this episode, and I'm kind of loving it, actually.
Yeah.
So go listen to our podcast completely, and to all the people we collaborate with entirely.
Yeah, and I think the Masks rule set lends itself way more towards shorter campaigns. Or short to midterm, depending on what you want to do with it. Yeah. Because I think the character advancement there is pretty straightforward without making it too insane or too much of a big spectrum like in D&D from level 1 to 20. The power difference is immense between level 1 and level 20. But I feel like I haven't played Masks that much yet, so I can't tell for sure. But the thing that we played felt like, yeah, you are pretty powerful already at the beginning of the game. Yeah. You get way more powerful, but not to that extent that other games might do.
I mean, it's a game about teenage superheroes, right?
Yeah.
It's a game about growth, so character growth is supposed to be there, in my opinion. It's a game about emotions, so yeah, it's a lot about growth, or it can be a lot about growth if you want to have that story. I think Mask actually as a system is a game that that lends itself really well to both styles, long and short campaigns. I think Powered by the Apocalypse might do that as a general system well, because it's very easy to pick up, at least in my opinion, right? This was the first time we played Powered by the Apocalypse with Klaus, so it was easy to pick up and play as a one-shot. Yeah. But it also lends itself to campaigns. And I think you can play 4-parters, 8-parters, and also a little bit longer than that. I don't think you can play the, as you said, power difference from D&D from 1 to 20, because that's gonna take a long session and 2 to 3 years of games and worth. Yeah, I can see that doesn't work in the Masks, but again, I have not played enough to make that statement. Generally, I think it blends itself really well to short campaigns that have a lot of growth in them, because advancement in the Powered by the Apocalypse system is a lot different than D&D. It's not in a one milestone kind of way. At least I remember from a different Powered by the Apocalypse game that advancement there is if you fail, you get advancement. I don't know. Anyway, moving on from that.
And one more thing that just came to my mind was having different campaign lengths, or like we talked about, has different benefits. But sure, there are some drawbacks as well.
Yeah.
Like with everything, there are always pros and cons.
Yeah, but that's okay. One thing about pros and cons is obviously, right, you need to balance those. What pros are you actually looking for? Because then the cons are gonna be given, right? If you say the pro of a short campaign is a short investment time. It's not going to be heavy on you as a dungeon master and your players, because it's not going to be that long of a campaign. So the load of prep is going to probably only be a few weeks for you, or a few, I don't know, writing sessions, however you prep. And for your players, it's going to be the sessions and a few outgame hours, maybe, if even. So there's going to be less investment. Obviously, that's a pro. So yeah, you're looking for low investment game. So probably gonna be a shorter game. So the investment for you and your players is lower, but the story isn't that intricate. But that's a trade you're willing to make. You want that trade because you're looking for the investment. You're looking for short investments or for low investment games. And I think that's the main part. Do not look for drawbacks, but look for the benefits. Find the benefits you want and then decide on the campaign length you want. And the benefits can be everything from the game to the story to the player characters to villains to whatever, right? There's a lot of different things you can to benefits. And there's going to be drawbacks in the exactly opposite direction. So if you want to have an intricate story, then the drawback about that could be that your story is not going to get closure anytime soon.
Yeah, or your players might end up with some sort of option paralysis where they have just too much things to do and can't decide, and so the game grinds to a halt, or could be.
One of the things that was one of the drawbacks of our 9-year campaign is overwhelmment of everything.
Oh yeah.
Our story was convoluted as fuck. It wasn't convoluted as fuck actually, it just seemed that way for us players. The story wasn't all that convoluted actually, looking back at it. It was convoluted at times, yes, but that was because we didn't see the bigger picture. But that's gonna be one of the things that happens in a longer campaign. There's gonna be a lot of different side information your players have to piece together, and they're gonna probably miss a few details, and they're gonna probably forget a few details from a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's something you just have to take. That's one of the drawbacks. Your story is gonna probably be longer, therefore more convoluted, therefore more confusing for your players. That, however, does not mean that your story is bad or not well made or just not for your players or whatever.
Exactly. It's just a thing you have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Like, for example, with shorter campaigns or short stories is you have an action-packed and tight story, for example, but that might limit the freedom of the players or the player characters, what they can do with their characters. For example, downtime might not be a thing, or not that much of a thing, depending on the campaign length. But this is something, if you want a short or if you're running a short campaign, keep that in mind, that downtime or long downtime sessions aren't really a thing there, or might feel odd. If you have action-packed session 1 to 5, then a weirdly 1 month's downtime period, and then action-packed last session 8, or whatever session, that might feel weird.
Yeah, right? The shorter the campaign, the more streamlined your game is gonna go. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Drawbacks for you might be benefits for others.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things you need to remember. You could say, I do not like heavy combat, and others do love heavy combat. And there's gonna be campaigns for both of you. So, yeah. Just look for the things you want to do with your table, right? Going back to session 0, because that's right now a big topic in the community. Your session 0 should include a discussion about expectations and management about those. And that includes your session length. It includes talking about how long this is gonna be, how long you want this to be, and how long you can make it work. Because sometimes someone says, hey, I am 3 months off my summer job. Why don't we play every week on a Tuesday before I have to go back? And then you have that many sessions before that player is gone. You could say to the player, hey, how about after that you're not in the campaign anymore? And the player might be fine with that. The others might be fine with that. But you could also end the campaign there, because that's still a limitation you have to work with. And I think this episode was a lot about working with the limitations you have and not making them limitations, because they're not. It's not a limitation. It's just something, it's an arbitrary line you set that is a goal. And the goal is not a limitation.
Some sort of guideline, maybe.
Yeah. No one would call the goal post line a limitation in a marathon. It's not a limitation of the marathon. It's the end of the marathon. Yeah. It's where people want to go. It's where everyone deserves to go.
Exactly.
Right? If you start a campaign with your players, they just want to see that campaign through. Not because they're bored with it, but just because that closure is important. They love in it. people love finishing these games. They love ending stories, ending one-shots, ending campaigns, and setting that expectation of when this campaign ends just ensures that that's going to happen a lot more often.
Exactly.
A lot of campaigns fizzle out because people get scheduling issues. Maybe those scheduling issues actually arise because you do not manage well enough how often someone actually can make it and how long they have enjoyment in this campaign. If suddenly after 10 sessions your games start to fizzle out because your players can't make it, maybe you should have just met for a 10-part game with them. Then that wouldn't happen.
Exactly.
This is also not a rant about people not being able to finish campaigns. I know that feeling all too well. It's hard, but just remember, if you have a lot of campaigns fizzling out because your campaigns are too long, make them shorter. Then you get that sweet feeling of finishing a game. Yeah. And you can talk about it on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And that's cool.
Yeah. Definitely.
No, but I think, setting endings for a campaign or setting expectations for a campaign's length only has a lot of benefits. It has some drawbacks, but only because you want some benefits. And there's going to be drawbacks to those benefits because that's just how life works.
If you do something, you can't do another thing. That's just simply how it is. If you go left, you can't go right at the same time. If you do a short campaign, you can't do a long campaign at the same time. It's just this is not possible.
Yeah.
So this is the same way with the benefits and drawbacks in quotation marks each, because it's just some traits you have to accept. If you do this, you can't do that, and the other way around.
You just have to live with it. And I think we illustrated well enough why people should limit their campaigns. This is probably one of the episodes where I think one of my biggest advice comes out. Again, do expectation management, and that includes some stuff out of games, like campaign length, frame of game. Remember that word. Talk about the frame of your game. This was just about length, but there's a lot of more different things that we could talk about in when we talk about frame of game. But this is one of the biggest things. When does this game end? And so everyone is on the same page. That is helpful a lot, because at the end, that's all TTRPGs are about. Everyone being on the same page, being able to play a game of collaborative storytelling together.
Yeah, I think that about wraps it up on how to manage your campaign length, how to find the right one for you, and yeah, I think it does. Okay, so with that, you can follow us as per usual on Twitter and Instagram at DoubleDMPod. You can also visit our website, www.doubledm.com. We also have a Ko-Fi if you want to donate there or whatever. Just go visit. I won't force you, but if you want to, go ahead. And please, if you like the show, rate it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast listening platform of your choice, because it really helps the show out. And with that, thanks for listening. Hear you on the next one, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye, people.